Le Moshiach viendra que quand Édom, l'Europe, la chrétienté sera totalement tombée. Donc je vous pose la question, c'est une bonne nouvelle que l'islam envahisse l'Europe? C'est une excellente nouvelle, ça montre qu'elle
the globe. This is exactly what they follow. In this book, it talks about how stars are going to start colliding very soon for the Moshiach, right? For the Moshiach, stars are going to start colliding, so the Moshiach can come and rule the planet. Well, the United States is flirting with the idea of bringing Saudi Arabia and Israel together. Two sisterly nations who don't have open ties. If this happens, then expect other Arab and Muslim countries to come forward and normalize relations with Israel. Biden isn't just going to Saudi Arabia in order to beg the Saudis to pump more oil and lower oil prices just to hurt Russia, who's making a lot of money by supplying cheap oil to friendly nations. The Saudis aren't going to pump more oil and lower oil prices without any benefit. So the Biden regime is definitely looking at all options to bring Saudi and Israel close together in respect to trade and relations. If Saudi Arabia and Israel normalizes ties, then will the Palestinian cause be brushed under the carpet, along with other similar causes in the Muslim world, like Kashmir for instance? For sure, friendly ties with Israel will overshadow all of that because we live in a world where money speaks more than anything. And we saw how the signatory countries of the Abraham Accord were quiet over raids in Al-Aqsa. Islam's third holiest site was raided during Ramadan last year. The governments that signed the US brokered Abraham Accords, mainly the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco and Sudan, didn't utter much when Israel was hammering the Palestinians. Each of these countries offered muted or tepid condemnation of Israel's violent assault on civilians, which very clearly tells us that the mosque is not under Muslim sovereignty and gives a green light to Israeli sovereignty. And the ultimate goal behind the Abraham Accords is to facilitate the third temple, for the construction of the third temple, for the coming of the Jewish Messiah.
Today, there is a lobby in the Knesset of how many members of Knesset that are constantly speaking about Jewish rights to pray on the Temple Mount. There are members of Knesset that actually talk about the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. Do you understand that 20 years ago, these people wouldn't have been given a moment on prime time television in Israel to say these things? They would have been laughed out.
So a few years ago, this was considered fringe?
Zealots, lunatics, peculiar. Today it's mainstream. Today it's mainstream. Today it's mainstream.
They've been openly preparing for the third temple. They've genetically engineered a red heifer. According to Jewish prophecies, a red heifer must be born without blemish in order to be sacrificed at the third temple. Someone even decided to release harmless snakes at the Wailing Wall, calling it prophetic and one of the signs of the coming of the Moshiach. As you know, religious Jews are waiting for the arrival of the Moshiach, the Messiah, believing that Jesus Christ, who came into our world over 2,000 years ago, was an imposter. The Jewish Kabbalists are looking for the signs of their Messiah, literally in everything, and are even producing some of the signs themselves in order to force prophecy, the hand of God. They even began to attribute some numerals to the snake incident at the Wailing Wall, referring to the fact that in Gematria, Jewish numerology, both serpent and Moshiach equals to 358. Attention is now turning to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. However, normalizing ties between the Saudis and Israelis won't be easy, even though both parties truly want to jump into bed together. Saudi Arabia is the custodian of the two holy mosques. The Saudi royal family demands great respect among the Muslim world. Don't ask me why, but that's just how it is. A lot of people think they've been chosen by God for their job. And of course, Saudi Arabia will try to show to the world, especially to the Muslim world, that there are prerequisites for peace with Israel. But be sure, any deal signed between Saudi Arabia and Israel will always be a bad deal, no matter how much they try to sugarcoat it. Israel has an expansionist agenda. It doesn't want to withdraw from the occupied territories and is certainly not trying to advance towards peace. It has to be forced to retreat from stolen territories in the West Bank, Gaza and the Golan Heights, along with Jerusalem. Israel is run on religious extremism. That's their identity, a Zionist state. They claim due to the creation of Israel, end times prophecies have been fulfilled, and they will never ever let go of Jerusalem at any cost. If all the Arab nations and the entire Muslim world normalize with Israel, then many Jews who are scattered around the world and who are yet not in Israel might feel safe to move to Israel. They call this practice aliyah. Therefore, it could look like a fulfillment of their prophecy, which will then empower them further to take bold measures and build the third temple. Anyone who follows these prophecies knows the deal won't last for too long. This might be the 7-year peace deal treaty that literally puts the entire Middle East on fire. The last stand will be fought by the Palestinians, isolated and alone, but that doesn't mean it won't be fought long and hard. Free Palestine.